I just tweeted something that said, there's a very fine line between perseverance and delusion. And it's this question people always ask me, like, when should I give up, Gary? I've been doing this, rapping thing. I've been doing this vlog. I've been doing this restaurant. It's not going well 2.5 years in. And I can never answer it because you need to know the nuances and the details.
If you're like me, the idea of quitting is hard, but the practice of quitting is even harder. In our society, the desire to achieve is promoted and expected to the point that when we don't achieve a goal, shame arises. And shame is a huge factor in our pastoring and leading. Goals have a way of leading to shame.
How fast can you forgive yourself for not living up to the goal or not living up to the expectation? How fast? How fast can you be kind to yourself? Because you know what's going to happen, right? There's this really big day in goals that I call the day after perfect. The day after perfect is the day after your perfect plans have fallen apart. So maybe like you had the most amazing streak. You had a 3-month streak for like eating the things you wanted to eat or drinking the water or getting the sunlight. And then for some reason you didn't do it. The goal fell apart. And now it's the day after perfect. And now all this shame rushes in, all this judgment rushes in. How fast can you be kind to yourself?
In this episode of the Pastoral Leadership Connection, we're exploring when to quit a goal, including the dilemma of what to do with team members when they need to go. Thanks to our friends at Texas Ministries of the Church of God for their patronage. TXM serves to equip pastors and churches to develop leaders and multiply disciples to advance the kingdom of God in Texas. Goal setting can be a difficult practice in congregations because goals are an aspect of accountability. Accountability sounds good until you realize that the goals you have are influenced by the participation and performance of others. We understand the influence of others on goals in the framework of the business world. For instance, if a warehouse has a shipping delay and the product is late to arrive at the store, a sales goal may go missed, and this will lead to repercussions. They will lead to repercussions throughout the organization, including the dismissal of personnel and processes. Just as if a goal is achieved, there is a celebration that might go to a person who is a figurehead, but was not actually an active agent in the achievement of the goal. In congregational life, goals and accountability are different from many businesses and their experiences. Church life is about keeping people. Holding others accountable can lead to hurt feelings that can result in people leaving. So how do we set goals? How do we quit goals? And how do we hold people accountable? Is there a way to do this without shame? Well, I believe first it starts with the tone that we set as leaders. Tom Rainer, who's a church consultant and author, identifies many traits of a toxic leader, but it starts with a refusal of accountability.
I can tell story after story. I can tell story of HOA. I can tell story of churches, but they're autocrats. And one of the things that they don't do is they don't welcome accountability. And for example, I'm thinking of a toxic pastor. And this is several years ago, but one thing that pastor would not do, he wouldn't let anyone see the financial statements except himself.
Pastors, some of us are guilty of not allowing ourselves to be held accountable, to not being held accountable to the congregation in an honest and genuine way. If we want to achieve our goals, the ones that we believe that God has inspired us to live out, we must open ourselves up to accountability. And accountability, it's not merely judging a failure. It's about openly sharing. When I get an idea, I want to act on that idea right away. So one of the ways that I'm practicing accountability these days is to present an idea to others, to allow them to share in the process of the idea with me.
Now let's go back and understand some things. God has designed faith to be at its maximum capacity when we come into agreement. where we're in agreement one with another. That doesn't mean that everybody has to agree. That doesn't mean the neighbors across the street have to agree. But there has to be an agreement concerning what God has promised you, and hopefully somebody that can touch and agree with you.
If we can't agree, we can't have accountability. And if we can't have accountability, goals are merely dreams. You see, in the accountability process, we begin to discern if a goal is worth continuing or if it's time to quit. With the advent of artificial intelligence, we can use some tools to our advantage to help us in the processing of things, the processing of goals. And so I recently asked ChatGPT about accountability. I asked it, what are some questions to consider before quitting a goal? And this is what I got. Number one, did I set realistic and achievable goals for myself? Number two, have I given myself enough time and effort to see the results? Number three, have I sought feedback or support from others who have experience in this area? And number four, am I quitting because of a temporary setback, or am I truly not passionate about this goal anymore? Number five, what are the consequences of quitting this goal? Will I regret it later? Number six, have I explored alternative options and strategies to achieve my goal? Number seven, have I considered the impact of quitting on my personal growth and development? 8, have I identified and addressed any obstacles or challenges that have hindered my progress towards my goal? Number 9, what have I learned from this process of pursuing this goal? And how can I apply these lessons to future endeavors? And finally, number 10, and again, these are all from ChatGPT. Am I quitting this goal for the right reasons? And am I at peace with my decision to move on? Working through questions like these is a process, not merely a feeling. Too many of us quit based on feelings, not a process. As people committed to following Christ, we need to seek him in prayer as a major part of the discernment process. But I also encourage us to, not only pray on our own, but to invite others into the process of prayer too. Now, some of us choose to quit out of shame, and the shame that shame is really that things didn't go as we desired or hoped. And Brené Brown's work on the subject of shame is very helpful, especially when we think about how it is that we need to move forward or quit. And in this clip, from 60 Minutes, she explains shame and guilt.
So shame is really a focus on self, while guilt seems to be a focus on behavior. So shame, I am bad. Guilt, I did something bad. Just an example. I'm your teacher and I give you your test back and you get a 47 out of 100. Shame self-talk would be, God, I'm so stupid, I'm an idiot. Guilt self-talk would be, God, it was really stupid not to study for that. Man, not a good idea to go out last night. When we are able to separate a focus on self and a focus on behavior, we're much more likely to be able to change the behavior.
Missing a goal is something that produces or can produce great shame in us. But if we can confess our guilt instead of living in shame, we have an opportunity to evaluate the actions without having to be horrible people. And this leads to the final piece. What if, in working through our goals and accountability, it's determined that the guilt requires a change in personnel? How do we, as leaders of mostly volunteer organizations, fire a volunteer? YouTuber Coach Julie Compton offers this insight.
If you're having a hard time letting go of an employee and they're your friends, you might want to think it through by writing it down first and separating out the objectives from your emotions. Second, you might also want to talk to them personally about how it feels to be their friend and what you want for them in their life moving forward. And make that a separate conversation outside of work. And third, you also want to make sure that you don't take responsibility for their work. It isn't your job to make sure they do a great job. It's their responsibility to make or break themselves in their career. If you've helped them and coached them, that is all that you can do along the way.
Julie goes on to add a fourth bullet: make it concise and quick. In my practice, I follow the following, steps when I want to address goals that aren't being met and maybe the need to let someone go. First, I have coffee and I talk it over with the person. I talk about the goals of ministry and the impact that that person has on our goals. Then I let the person choose to continue in alignment with the goals or to step away. And finally, I want to be gracious and give a gift or severance if possible. And I want to celebrate what can be celebrated. This way, I'm not the person firing, but as much as I'm inviting the other person to quit. I've been in the difficult place of letting paid and unpaid team members go. I've even had to resign as the pastor of a few members of my church because our goals were irreconcilable. At the end of the day, I always keep in mind what it was like to have someone quit on me or to be fired. And I've been fired from at least 2 jobs. The first one was painful, and the second one was graceful. I've come to embrace separation from goals or people as part of the refining process. John 15 alludes to a bit of this when Jesus talks about the way that the Father prunes the vine. I've also had to admit my past hesitancy to engage in the refining process was a lack of confidence in God's ability to take care of others without me around. In our next episode, we will explore ways to improve our teams through gratitude and celebration, even on a shoestring budget. For the Pastoral Leadership Connection, I'm Malcolm Tyree. Until next time, care for souls by leading them well.